Hello and welcome to the Win Daily Sports Show. My name is Ghost and I'm joined by Rich, Matt Vecchio, and the one and only Alan, of course, my other Canadian partner in crime here at Win Daily Sports. We're here breaking down this 5-game NHL slate on opening day. Guys, how are we doing?
Not bad. Yourself, Ghost?
Absolutely amazing. It's always fun when we get to talk hockey. Matt, Alan, how are you guys doing?
Doing fantastic. I mean, I've been waiting for opening day, so I'm getting all my jitters out.
Absolutely.
Oh, good. Yeah. Been a long time since the NHL played, it felt like. So I'm glad to have it back in a couple of days.
Yeah, it was nice. It was a nice little schedule that we had there throughout the bubble, and definitely fun to get back into action. Obviously, we're in primetime NFL playoff season as well. NBA's back underway, so it's nice to have hockey back as well. So I'll turn it over to you, Rich, right off the bat of the show. We're just gonna talk a little bit basic intro to NHL DFS and just mainly what you're looking for. I know you discussed some couple of things with line correlation and whatnot. What are the main things that you really look for when playing some NHL DFS, whether it be on FanDuel or on DraftKings?
I mean, the first thing I analyze is the pricing. Try to get an idea, first before looking at price, first before looking at that, I try to just sort of size everything up, odds, all the lines, what's going on, and sort of get an idea like who do I want to roster tonight? What would I do? And then I sort of go to both sites and sort of look at pricing. And that's one of my first comparisons because, normally you'll see some disparity, some teams underpriced on one site and super expensive on the other. And you sort of go from there, how many contests do I want to enter on each site? How much do I want to emphasize that? But the scoring format's definitely a little bit different too. On FanDuel, you don't have as many bonus points for things. DK really changed last year in terms of shot bonuses and block shot bonuses and all sorts of things that this guy might not score a goal, but he gets 5 shots on goal and he gets an assist and he might let's say he's a defenseman who spends 22 minutes on the ice and now he has 3 block shots, so he has that bonus. So he might outscore somebody who scores a goal. So a little bit different on DraftKings. I think the goalie position as well. I tend to punt a little bit more just because you're not really rewarded for the win. Now, I think pretty much every night there's like a 2% goalie or a 3% goalie who faces 40, 50 shots or some crazy amount, maybe gets a shutout, only lets in 1, gets the win because they pulled the upset too. And, now you have a takedown with that goalie. You normally aren't as rewarded, as much for just getting the win. I forget how many points exact. It's like 4 points, I think. But it just doesn't really make it worth it. Whereas on FanDuel, it's the exact opposite. I probably want that win. I think it's like a good 12 points and then another 8 or something, for shutout, 7 or 8, something like that. So it makes a huge difference. So, a lot of times I might even, if I have a different sort of build that necessitates, a punt goalie or some sort of spend down, that might lead me to sort of build that over on DraftKings. But those are a couple things I would just consider, when building between the two sites.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we talked about punting goalie and both defense spots even possibly because I agree 100%, especially when we're talking about that block shot bonus. All of a sudden, a guy like Ian Cole over on Colorado possibly can outscore Kill McCarr on some nights just because he could rack up 5-6 block shots. And next thing you know, you're punting goalie, like you said. We had Craig Anderson a few seasons ago who were getting blasted by 40 plus shots a game. So those are always fun. We talked about 2 new additions to FanDuel, that being the 2 utility spots, of course. Matt, what are your thoughts on that, and what kind of difference do you think it's going to make to people's lineup construction in general?
Well, I like it. I mean, it gives you the opportunity to play, 4 centers if you wanted to, which is something you can only do 3 of on DraftKings, and there's a lot of lines, especially with power play units. When you're trying to stack a power play unit, you'll see 2 or 3 centers sometimes on a power play unit. And if you're looking for like a real GPP 4-man power play stack, you have to put the defenseman in and 2 centers and a wing, and you take a multi-center spot up, and then it leaves you with, make it difficult to stack your other teams, the other lines you're looking for. So, yeah, I like that the addition with the 2 utility spots. It makes it a little easier to build.
Yeah, of course. Do you guys think that, Alan, maybe you could chime in on this one. Do you think that it'll possibly defer people from stacking, or do you think it'll increase the odds of people stacking? How do you think people are going to approach it? Do you think that they're going to go more so center winger combinations, exactly like what Matt said. You could pretty much jam in 4 centers at this point. Do you think that it's going to be more so people go with 2 complete lines, little 1-2 punch like a Matthews Marner, rather than adding Hyman onto that line as well? Or do you really think that they'll just stick to the traditional route of going 3-man full line stacks?
I don't think it will necessarily divert people off of 3-man stacks. What I find interesting is now you have the opportunity to do 4-man power play stacks. So Colorado's an excellent example. Last year, Kadri was on the power play with Nathan McKinnon and usually with Burakovsky and Landeskog or Rantanen. And you can never fit all those guys together. But now you can get Kadri and McKinnon both in the same line and still have a center spot to get in another stack. What's also important is actually Hyman's on the 3rd line this year. He got replaced by Joe Thornton, so that adds a little bit of value to the Leafs there. There's a lot more to discuss, which we'll get to later, but that's just one point. I think Joe Thornton's a little slow, but you can always get some peripheral points playing with Matthews and Marner.
Yeah, of course. We always love these value wingers. We saw it with Kubalik early in the season when he was running hard with Taves, and even got some action with Kane on the wing there too, but before his price absolutely skyrocketed. So good to take advantage early on in the season of these value wingers, and good old Joe Thornton might be one of our targets there. So let's dive right into that. We know that there are a couple new divisions. Obviously, we have the All-Canadian division. Rich, are there any divisions in particular that we'll be attacking from a DFS perspective? One that you see that there are multiple goalie vulnerabilities, or really anything that really sticks out to you in the new alignment?
So of the divisions, I think East-West look pretty similar, sort of merging a little bit, but, that sort of makes sense. I think you'd expect that. It's, the Canadian division, so to speak, the North division, that's pretty interesting. I guess you guys, probably have heard a lot about it, being up north there.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, obviously that, and then that Central Division, which is sort of like a hodgepodge of like former Eastern and Western Conference teams. In terms of, in who stands out from a DFS perspective in those divisions, I think it's mixed all over the place. Like that's sort of a hard thing to break down. But, I think they did it in a way that all the divisions are very competitive. So I sort of like it. You don't have any one division where it's, the equivalent of the NFC East over here. So
yeah, we saw we saw what happened that season where the Giants and Eagles fans are kind of having at it there because they think that 5 or 6 wins should be able to make them earn hosting a playoff game. So none of that really much in hockey. Obviously, all divisions are pretty much competitive. There are a couple that are stronger than others, but now even with the realignment, I agree 100%. I really do think that this is going to be a competitive season, and there are a lot of good teams to watch out for. Matt, are there any teams that you think? Give me maybe one team, either or, one team that you think is going to surprise in exceeding expectations, or one team that you think is going to flop with some heavy preseason expectations.
There's a lot of teams that it's hard to get a gauge on because they're playing teams that they haven't played before. Like out west, like you were talking about the divisions, like the NFC East, the West division's almost like that to me because you have 3 teams, Colorado, Vegas, and St. Louis, who are just going to dominate the other 5 teams in their division. And it's going to be a bad team like a Minnesota or an Anaheim who could make a playoff. Someone's got to get that 4th spot and make the playoffs. I think Minnesota is a team that, I mean, if Cam Talbot's any good in goal, which I mean that's a big if. If Kaprizov is as good as the people in Minnesota are talking about, they could get that 4th playoff spot, and you never know in a 7-game series what could happen. So Minnesota is a team that they're not like a great fantasy team. You really don't want to play them that much because there's not much there. They don't have a number 1 center. Nick Bustad and Bonino, those aren't number 1 centers, but they really like this kid Marco Rossi. He's listed as injured now, an upper body injury, but he hasn't stepped on the ice yet. He just finished up the World Juniors with Austria, had a quarantine for 10 days when he came in, and then yesterday they listed him as injured. So they're really high on him. They wanted to give him his 6 to 7 game tryout with the junior contract and then see where it went from there. But Minnesota is a team that, because of the division they're in, really could make a big jump this year and make the playoffs. And you never know. Like you said, a 7-game series, a hot goalie could win you a series. So, yeah, Minnesota is one of those teams, and I think Toronto is a team that could actually be a letdown. There's so much hype in that division that they should have an easy division. They should walk through it because Montreal's not good, Ottawa's not good. Who knows what Calgary is? Vancouver, win it. So they should walk through it. But I really like Calgary and what Montreal did in the offseason. So I think it could be more difficult for Toronto, and they may actually not win that division.
And I'll turn it over to you. Obviously, you are in Toronto. You want to talk a little bit about your Leafs there, defend the possible walkthrough, or maybe they flop. What are your thoughts on the Leafs heading into the season here?
I like, you have no idea how much I want to praise Toronto, and they did get some good off-season acquisitions when it comes to TJ Brody, but aside from him, like they just got a lot slower and a lot older. They got Wayne Simmons, Zach Bogosian, Joe Thornton. Those aren't guys that are really exciting to me. Like, they can still play hockey, but when I'm looking at Montreal's additions, it pains me to say they got Tyler Toffoli. They're getting Alex Romanov at D, who is extremely cheap, especially on FanDuel. They have boosted their team so much, and I agree that Montreal is kind of like a dark horse in the division. I don't know if Toronto wins. I hope they win. I can see them winning, and I definitely see them taking one of the playoff spots, but it's going to be tougher for them, and we're going to need Toronto's top players to perform to their full expectation. We can't have people taking their foot off the gas like we saw Kapanen and Johnson do. They were fast guys, but they just weren't putting the puck in the net, and now neither of them play for Toronto, so we'll see.
Yeah, we saw what happened with that Toronto offense. I mean, obviously one of the most potent offensive units on paper, at least in the entire league, and yet some nights they just couldn't find the back of the net. So curious to see what they do. Obviously, Austin Matthews has another year under his belt. I can't wait to see what he does. Possibly a dark horse to end up leading the league in goals. So, Rich, talk to me about a couple marquee offseason, maybe signings or free agents, maybe even some that haven't even signed just yet. Obviously, we see with the flat cap and COVID having its effect on the league and whatnot. High profile players like Mike Hoffman getting PTOs and whatnot. I mean, you can include those guys if you like, but are there any marquee free agents that really stand out to you, possibly in new spots that we could take advantage of from a DFS?
I think Taylor Hall signing, I think that's going to be huge. And, I was going to say, I'll get back to Taylor Hall in a second, but one thing I did want to point out, we talked about Calgary, Montreal, and Toronto as potential teams that could win that Canadian division. Just to show the depth there, I'm going to bring up another two. Vancouver, who had an excellent run in the playoffs. Obviously very young, just still molding. I mean, I think they can potentially take it. And the defense is terrible. I know. But let's not sleep on any team that has Mick and Draisaitl. I mean, if Edmonton were to just tear it up, prove the defense a little, and, those guys roll their way through, I don't think anyone would be surprised. So, I mean, it just shows, just how great that division is. But to the Taylor Hall signing, I think he needed another piece there in Buffalo. I think Eichel, ready to take that next step. Sometimes a lot of focus on him. So, that's a team that I could see stepping it up a little bit with that addition.
Of course. And obviously our good buddy Zach ends up bringing it up, the Alex Pietrangelo signing in Vegas. I want to get your guys' thoughts on two right-handed shot defense that
how many defensemen do you need at some,
That's it, exactly. I mean, what do you think the kind of impact that a player like Alex Pietrangelo could bring on? Obviously, we saw Vegas go all the way to the Cup final once before, and what do you think his kind of impact would be, and what do you think that impact is going to have on a player such as Colton Parayko out there in St. Louis? Is it him? Is it a guy like Justin Falk that ends up stepping up on that right-hand shot blue line there for them? Who do you really see stepping up on the blue line for St. Louis in the absence of their former captain?
Figure he's probably first-team power play, all that. It fills the role.
Of course.
They also just got Torrey Krug, so I think they're able to survive the loss of Alex Pietrangelo. I think as soon as they got Torrey Krug, that's when Pietrangelo knew that he was not coming back, because they could only wait so long, and eventually St. Louis just had to pull the trigger. Yeah,
that's it. Especially with the amount of money that they have tied up in that blue line between Parayko, Krug, and obviously Justin Falk too, getting that hefty extension midway through the season before Pietrangelo even hit the market. So that was a little surprising, but needless to say, it looks like their blue line is pretty good. Do you guys see a way that maybe Vegas ends up making a move to get out of this cap casualty that they kind of find themselves in right now? Do you see a player like Jonathan Marchessault, any one of these guys, William Karlsson, possibly on the move? And if they do end up moving, what kind of fantasy impact that they could have on their future team? Or how do you guys like these guys staying in Vegas and really the way that they'll come out in this shortened season?
Well, I actually have heard some rumors that they're already trying to move Pacioretty. So they just signed him to a new contract a year ago, and then to move him right away, that's the cap salary cap for you. And I don't like that they'd want to move Pacioretty, but you gotta have salary cap space. So he's somebody, and depending on how the season goes, I mean, they're talking now, they're going to do a 50-50 split with the goalies, with Lehner and Fleury to start the season. But, I mean, if you need cap space and someone's looking for a goalie and wants to give you some picks and prospects, definitely Fleury could also move from Vegas to free up the cap space. But like I said, the Pacioretty trade, I wouldn't want to see them move Pacioretty. I think, they just signed him. He's a real important piece there. But they have some young kids in Vegas, like the kid Chandler Stevenson, who's going to be real cheap in fantasy, I think, and he's someone you can get even in your season-long drafts real late, who's right now centering that first line with Pacioretty and Stone. So, and a kid like Cody Glass, they also have who they really like too. So they have some pieces. So I guess it depends on what they bring back, but Pacioretty, somebody in Vegas, I've heard that could be moved to shave salary.
It's a real shame too, because they did give up a lot to get Pacioretty. If I remember correctly, they gave up Nick Suzuki and Thomas Tatar. Like Max Pacioretty is an amazing hockey player, but that is quite the haul. To be fair, they didn't know that Thomas Tatar was going to become a top line talent, but still,
and nobody plays him still.
Yeah, well,
he doesn't get played.
he should get played now. Like his price is surprisingly pretty low for a top line player like himself. But that would be a huge gut punch considering everything else that Vegas has accomplished in their first few years. They've just been wheeling and dealing. They have so many draft picks. They just swindled a bunch of teams when they were getting Shea Theodore, William Karlsson, Jonathan Marchessault, Riley Smith. They just robbed from a bunch of teams and actually built a Stanley Cup contending team. It would be a shame for them to lose Pacioretty like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you give up your best scorer, as probably arguably best player overall. I think Vecchio was on point with, they give up Fleury. I mean, half the time he's not playing anyway. So, if you could save some cap space that way, it seems a better way to do it. You got to win the Stanley Cup. You want to have someone there to lead your team, in that first power play unit, score your goals. So.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I could possibly maybe even seeing Marc-Andre Fleury going to a team like Colorado if they end up having some unstable goaltending there from Grubauer and Francouz. Of course, if we know that Joe Sakic is definitely not going to be shy about pulling the trigger possibly on a trade like that. And then of course you got Stevie Y out there in Detroit with an abundance of cap space and possibly can swindle grabbing one of those blue chip prospects or maybe even some picks for taking on Fleury's contract and stuff like that. So we already know that he's in talks with his former team out there in Tampa Bay. Obviously they got a bit of a break, yes and no, a bit of a break in terms of the cap by losing Nikita Kucherov, but then obviously getting a break by not having to give up any more of their rotational players there. So we know that Stevie Y is going to be able to swindle some of these cap casualty teams with the flat cap moving on with COVID. So I'm curious to see what he ends up doing, possibly trading for Marc-Andre Fleury and just eating that contract, grabbing a couple picks along the way, or maybe even grabbing a blue chip prospect. We'll go around the horn here, and obviously, Alan, I'm going to tell you right now, you're not allowed to say Toronto, but I'm going to ask each and every one of you guys for your top line to stack. Obviously, we know that every one of us in our pieces over at WinDailySports.com, we talk about line combination. Rich talked about it at the beginning of the show, how important line correlation is. We'll begin with our director of NHL, Rich. Which line are you really looking forward to stacking here in the early stages of the NHL season?
Sort of chalky, and maybe this is like part Stockholm syndrome, left over from the Eastern Conference Finals. But even without Cooch, the Chicago team did nothing to improve their defense. I mean, they just give up goals galore. I could see this being a somewhat one-sided game where Chicago nets can get something. They get they get a goal or two. But they give up 5, and Tampa's able to roll. I also do like the second line there. I think they offer, Thornton will be chalky in terms of value, but I think they offer some alternate value there. I mean, Blake Coleman, we know what a beast he was, with the Devils, and then later on, I think he was on the third line most of, towards the playoffs and stuff last year. But, I mean, pretty good value. So I guess between the big T's, I'm going to go with Tampa Bay.
Matt, who are we looking at in the early stages of the season here?
Well, I'll stick on brand with the Wednesday games since you mentioned Tampa and Chicago. I think everyone's going to kind of look at Colorado and Edmonton, but not look at St. Louis in the late night. I really like St. Louis's second line actually to stack because they're cheap. They help you fit in a Colorado or an Edmonton power play, Colorado power play, because Jaden Schwartz, Robert Thomas, and Mike Hoffman. Hoffman got his official deal today. He signed 1 year, $4 million, so he's officially under contract. The PTO is over for him. He's there. I think he's like 3,200 on DraftKings, and Thomas is only 3,000. I mean, you got two cheap guys with Schwartz. Schwartz is 58, and Robert Thomas is 3K, and Hoffman's 3,200. So that's a cheap line that is playing in power play. Hoffman has been running first power play with O'Reilly, Shen, Perron, and Krug during training camp, and then Schwartz and Thomas are on the second power play unit with Bozak, Parayko, and Dunn. So, I mean, you could make a 3-man stack like that with that line. You get access to both power play units for St. Louis, and in a game, I think that they're going to go under-owned and be overlooked, and they're a real cheap line. Like I said, you want to fit Edmonton, you want to fit a Penguin stack, Toronto, you got to save money, and both Thomas and Hoffman are cheap and help you do that.
Well, I love it. I didn't know.
I love that 1-2 punch. That's crazy.
I did a quick look up top, and you get a feel for the games, but didn't dig through every little level and the pricing. And I would say Hoffman's another one. If you want to go Hoffman, Thornton, and cash, and then just stack up from there, that seems like a game plan.
That's it. So we'll move it over to Alan. Now, Alan, obviously, I was joking when I said that you can't talk about Toronto. We know that you're going to at one point. You got the opening day article for our team over at WinDailySports.com. Give us a bit of a taste here. Give us one of the lines that we're looking at for opening day.
Well, I definitely agree with what's been said so far, especially Schwartz. He's probably one of my top plays. I really do like him, and I think he's in a great spot now in St. Louis. My top line is actually going to be Pittsburgh's second line. It was very tough between Vancouver's first, and Pittsburgh's second. But to me, it's such a solid line that consistently goes underpriced. I'm tired of FanDuel disrespecting Brian Rust. He's still at like 5K. The guy is like a top talent in his team and probably in the league as well. He consistently puts up points. He gets a lot of shots. He blocks shots, and he scores a lot of goals. And he's going up against Philly. And even though Philly's the favorite in this game ever so slightly, I was not impressed when I watched Philly's warm-up game. I saw Carter Hart letting some bad goals, but we'll see where it's at. I do like Hart's price, but I'm definitely leaning towards Pittsburgh too for some of my lines.
Yeah, we know how much that Malkin Rust duo did some crazy damage for us throughout last season, obviously on the power play together as well. So that's definitely one that we'll be going back to the well. We'll go around the horn here. Any last thoughts, gentlemen, whether it be on the Wednesday slate or just on the season in general? We'll begin with Rich.
Brian Rust, man. I mean, I think in terms of rankings, point per dollar, this guy's always number one in FanDuel. They must hate it. He did something to someone there. I mean, because he's here, you have to get an increase. But yeah, I guess, if I say anything about opening week, I think you have a lot of newbies out there. So those of us, have a little bit of hockey experience. This is a time that, some people say, well, it's early season. You might want to go light, especially if you have those bigger contests out there and a lot of people who don't know what they're doing. We might actually want to go a little bit heavier. Keep in mind, those of you new to hockey, a lot of things to watch. We're going to want to watch lines throughout the day, especially before lock. We could have idea, this is how it, with so-and-so out, this is how this line is going to match up. And then all of a sudden, they come out in the ice and it's all different. So be careful to pay attention to that as well as goalies. I could tell you every night you have newbies. I see people who might otherwise, win a tournament or something, but they left in a goalie who's not starting, and his game wasn't at main lock, etc. So just try to pay attention to things throughout the day. It's important.
Absolutely love that. Following
It's
the
very
news
true.
it is huge in any sport, and NHL is even more so. I mean, obviously we saw different line combinations happening, and then all of a sudden, it's nice that we get Joe Thornton on the opening line right off the bat. But you know that could happen midday in the month of February, where you know what he's on the third line and he slots in on the first.
You know, I did credit to what you do with NBA, man, because it's a whole nother level.
It's,
You know,
It's not
5 people starting. And
definitely not quite the NBA when it comes to late news.
Yeah, absolutely. It's we see it with soccer. Obviously, all you guys are in that chat as well, and we appreciate everything that you guys do with the team every single day. We see that lineups end up changing, set pieces end up changing in soccer. It's the same kind of thing in hockey. We end up getting a different rotation on power play units, and we end up getting one of these value wingers that really end up changing the slate completely when they end up slotting
I think usually you have a little bit less time because soccer usually it's about like an hour 55 minutes when I was running.
Yeah.
On average 35 minutes or so.
Yeah, that's it. It's nice to see definitely being able to move on the fly. Obviously, you need to make sure that you join our Discord chat to be able to get all these 3 fine gentlemen, and of course Austin as well, who's not with us tonight, but always listening and making sure that he's in that Discord chat as well. WinDailySports.com/chat, 7 free days. Gentlemen, I thank you very much for allowing me to join you tonight. I cannot wait to end up reading your content on Wednesday and throughout the season. For all of you guys, for all of us at Win Daily Sports, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you Wednesday for the opening day of the NHL slate.
Take care.
Thank you.